Executing that perfect prime rib roast is a cinch. Let me show you how to get it done. This beautiful piece of meat doesn't take a lot of effort, but once you put in these little simple techniques that I show you, you're gonna come out with this beautiful cut of meat. It's gonna be perfectly medium, medium rare. However you wanna make it, it's gonna be a crowd pleaser. Okay, at the store, I want you to get a roast that has the bone in. It's gonna be worth it because you're gonna get to save those bones and it's gonna give you all that flavor. This one that I bought has 4 nice big rib bones. We count the ones on the back. And then it has this nice big piece of fat flap on the front, and you wanna keep that intact. Don't cut that off. As usual, you wanna always rinse and pat dry your meat because when it comes from the store or the butcher, there's some remnants left over. Just get those all the way off and nice and dry so that you can cut it safely. I'm gonna use a deboning knife or a fish knife to remove those bones. I'll leave the link in the description below. This knife is really nice and sharp and it's flexible. Go ahead and turn your meat vertical and start right underneath that fat cap. And you're gonna slice a little bit down, maybe about 1 inch, and then turn it around and kind of just follow the shape of that rib bone. Open it up and keep following that shape. I like to turn mine one more time and go straight down, trying to stay as close to those rib bones as I can. I am not a butcher by any means, but we got it done. Put those rib bones to the side and then we're gonna go ahead and score that fat. Using your knife, go ahead and score, and that means just cutting nice about 1/4 inch grooves all the way on the front of that meat. Now I like to use pink Himalayan salt for the fat cap before I sear it. This salt is not quite as strong as kosher salt. It has this nice little sweet flavor to it. And so that's the one I like to use on the front. Now when I flip it onto the back, I'm gonna use kosher salt because it's a little bit heavier, it's a little more coarse, and it gives you that nice flavor and it's very rich. So go ahead and put some kosher salt right on the back. If you only have kosher salt, use it for the front and the back. That's no problem. This is just a preference of mine and I like how it tastes. Go ahead and also season that rib bone because we're gonna sear that. That's gonna be cooking with the meat as well. You wanna season every piece that you have. Rub it in, use your hands, get in there. Okay, make sure every piece is seasoned. Turn it vertical, get all of that meat nice and seasoned. Don't skimp on that part, baby. Thing is seasoned and I feel good about it. I'm gonna heat up my skillet to about high heat and I'm gonna add about 4 tablespoons of vegetable oil, and then we're gonna let that get all the way nice and hot because you want to get that nice hard sear on your meat. I like to use this medium-sized wok because it kind of imitates the shape of that rib roast. So I just slid that in. It's nice and sizzling and nice and hot, and I like to check it. You can lift it up, see if it's good, maybe a few more minutes, maybe 30 seconds to get that nice sear. You don't want to overdo it obviously, but don't be nervous. Go ahead and flip it. Be very careful because that's hot oil, and you see you get that nice little crust on the top there. All right, let that sit and sear for another 1 to 2 minutes, and then we're gonna make sure that we get both the sides. So use your tongs and a fork and just, make sure that you use safety. Don't let it fall down. Don't let it splash because I want you to be safe in the kitchen with that hot oil. I went ahead and put my meat back on my cutting board now that it's seared off, and then we're gonna add those rib bones right to the back of that. Now, the reason that you're adding the rib bones at the end is because when you're gonna cut that piece of meat, you don't have to cut through the rib bones, and you can save the rib bones for soup or something like that. Find some butcher string. I'll put a link in the description below. I just got this at the grocery store, but we can find it on Amazon. You're gonna wanna tie it on nice and tight. I like to use either the knot method. This one is not as tight as I want, so on this next one I'm gonna use the shoestring method. Tie it nice and tight, and then you're gonna have about 4 pieces of string that keeps it on there. Now the reason that we're tying the rib bones back to the meat is because we want to get all of that flavor from those bones in that cook. And it also helps elevate it so those drippings get cooked all the way around. And you're going to want to save those rib bones because you know what? You're going to be making soup later, and I'm going to show you how to do it. Go ahead and trim off those ends because you don't want some extra, string while you're cooking it up. And just cut right across. Not too close to that knot though, so they don't fall off. All right, now for seasoning time. I like to use dried thyme, dried rosemary, and fresh cracked black pepper. I use my mortar and pestle and like to, crunch it up, stir it around, smash it so it gets nice and evenly crushed. Sprinkle it all over the top, and I'm talking about liberal seasoning. I mean, make that whole thing green if you can. All those rosemary and thyme flavors are so delicious. Make sure you get that rib bone because, like I said, that fat dripping down is going to season that rib bone. That rib bone's going to season the roast. Everything gets seasoned in this situation, and it's very important. All right, and then I'm going to use this garlic slicer. You can slice garlic by hand, but I like this tool because look at these little shavings that it makes. It's amazing. I'll leave a link in the description below. You don't have to use this tool, but it just makes these perfect little shavings that I'm gonna show you where you're gonna shove them in to all the crevices of this meat. You're gonna want to put little X's all over, anywhere you can find. Just kind of go down and you're just gonna shove all of that garlic in there. I think that's about 5 or 6 cloves of garlic that I'm using. And garlic just gives that extra kick of flavor that this piece of meat needs. I went ahead and made sure that I also shoved some garlic right underneath that rib bone. I mean, put it everywhere. If you don't like garlic, that's totally fine, but that is a flavor to savor. So once we've seasoned it up, we're gonna head and get ready to put it on our roasting pan. Now, one more thing I forgot to mention. I like to drizzle a little bit more olive oil at the end, right before we throw it in the oven. That olive oil just gives that extra nice, crispy crunch to it. So add it or don't, but I love it. Now I'm going to use a roasting pan that's a V shape, and the drippings go down. If you want to make an au jus, you can use that. You can also use a cast iron skillet, a baking sheet. You don't have to have a roasting pan. The roasting pan is just, fancy because you're going to use those drippings for later. I'm going to go ahead and cook this roast uncovered in an oven for about 3.5 hours at 250 degrees. And before you take it out, go ahead and check that temperature. I want mine to be medium rare. So it's at a 125 to 130 temperature when it's done. Let that rest for an entire hour, still wrapped up, before you cut it. Don't cut those bones off until it's been at least 1 hour for that meat to rest and those juices to redistribute. If you look closely, you can see that meat is glistening and there's dripping, and this is a piece of beauty. Look at that roast. It's got that nice, beautiful crust, and save those bones. Do not discard. And now we're gonna go ahead and slice it up now that it's finished resting. Look at that end piece. People fight over that, Use a nice sharp knife and then finish it off with your favorite sauce. I made a little bit of a cream cracked black pepper sauce, and you know what? Everybody enjoyed this meal. I added scalloped potatoes and it's delicious. I hope you enjoy it. It's good, baby. Subscribe and like, and I'll see you next time.